it. To the top, ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal skinny. Jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it right. Chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we chop a mic, they call we give it a general. International, when me ride palm rhythm and I move with the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal skinny.
Yes. What's up, everybody? Joshua Casper here with Plugin Boutique, and join me in welcoming my very special guest for his second appearance here on the dev stream, Bill Podolak from iZotope. Bill, how you doing today?
Hey, Joshua, doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very excited to have you on and to talk about Ozone 11. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. Why don't you let people who might not know, who missed the last stream, I'll get Killian to put a link to that last stream, by the way, in the chat. Let people know a little bit about yourself and your role, not only at iZotope, but on the Ozone project specifically, before we jump into checking it out.
Okay, cool. So, hi, everybody. My name is Bill. I'm a senior product manager at iZotope by Native Instruments, and I've been working with the team building Ozone for the last 2 years or so. We first worked on Ozone 10, which you may have seen last year, and then over the past year we've been developing Ozone 11. So my role is working with a super skilled team of engineers, both doing software development, quality assurance. We've got a couple of designers who are thinking about the user interface and the user experience of these products. And I'm also working with marketing people on launching this thing out into the world, which we just did yesterday, yes. As well as a bit of the business side. So I kind of get to go between all of those areas, and it's really fun building these plugins.
Absolutely, and it's a phenomenal plugin. I have had a chance to check it out. I haven't had a chance to make my video yet, but I don't even know if I'll need to now that I have you on here to show us the ins and outs. Just before, again, we jump in, can you give me like the top 5 highlights of what's new and what we're going to be checking out in this live stream?
Yeah, totally. Okay, top 5. We've got the new Clarity module, which we're looking at right now. We've got the stem focus feature, Transient Sustain, which we've added to 10 of the Ozone modules. We've got newly designed interface kind of all across Ozone, but especially low-end focus, spectral shaper, and the maximizer. And then within the maximizer, we've added upward compression DSP. And then last but not least, our master assistant has gotten smarter and has more dialed in sort of response and is giving better results. And in addition, we've given it a new capability to understand the balance of vocal to the rest of the music and give you a check if it believes your vocal is balanced, and otherwise can balance your vocal to be louder or quieter depending on sort of genre norms.
Amazing. And am I correct in assuming that we're going to check all of that out right now on stream?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, let's flip over to your desktop, and let's let that load for a second. And then you can just jump us right in and get started showing us this incredible update to what was already an incredible suite of plugins.
Yeah, totally. It's fun. I'll pause for a minute there because it really was already an incredible suite of plugins, and we're kind of standing on the shoulder of giants here. So it's a privilege to be able to continue sort of the legacy of over 20 years of Ozone development and how this product has kind of shaped the sound of hits, and also democratized sort of music production for a lot of people. Okay, so what we have here, what we're looking at is the new Clarity module. This is a new Spectral processor that we've added to Ozone. And by Spectral, it means this uses sort of hundreds of very small bands in between 300 and 20,000 hertz to do something special. Here's the glamorous way of saying it. It adaptively maximizes your mix's spectral power. And here's the simpler way of saying it. It contours your mix towards pink noise,
Nice.
which can actually be tilted different colors of noise. So if you're familiar with those, like 3 dB per octave brighter from pink noise is white noise, 3 dB per octave down is brown noise. And this has the effect of really polishing your music and adding this professional sheen and shine to it, kind of pulling the blanket off of dull mixes without ever getting harsh. So maybe we'll jump into a sound example here and take a listen to...
Kind of sounds like magic.
It's definitely a little bit of magic. It's funny how everything's magic until you get behind the scenes, right? And then you understand a little bit about how the math is working.
Science.
So hopefully we can, the magic is good, but we're behind the scenes here, so we can kind of pull that back, and I can tell you exactly what's happening.
Bill, before you do that, I forgot to mention at the top of the program here, because I was so excited to jump right in, that we are actually going to be giving away a copy to 3 lucky people. We're going to give a copy of Ozone 11 Advanced, Ozone 11 Standard, and then Ozone 11 Elements. 1 copy to 1 person. 3 people are going to win today. To be entered to win, all you need to do is be active in the chat and be a positive force. That's either asking good questions, answering questions, or just being a nice person. And you'll all be entered to win. 3 lucky people are going to be very happy at the end of the stream. And also, join us next Thursday for Nectar 4, which also just came out yesterday as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, it did.
Nice. All right, so with all that out of the way, go ahead and jump right into showing us Clarity, please.
Okay, cool. So I'll start with it bypassed, and then we'll do like a gain matched on and off here. So
Bill,
hopefully you could hear that.
Yeah, let's bring it up about 2-3 dB. I know we tried to level match this in the beginning. Yeah, let's let him hear it again just so we can really get a good example.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. Cool.
So
And so just so everyone's clear, like when I hit this bypass and it goes gray, that means it's off. When I turn it on and it's moving, that means it's on.
it's also gain matched, which I think is maybe important to point out. That would you think it'd be a more apparent difference if the gain match were off? Can we perhaps try that out, or do you think it doesn't really matter in this case?
It doesn't really matter in this case.
Okay.
I think pretty much all the demos I'm going to do here today are going to be gain matched because it's
Best way
very
to do
easy to make something sound better when it's louder,
Yeah.
as probably everyone on the stream knows. So like, this is like intellectual honesty and transparency that, at least in my headphones, and hopefully the listeners out there can hear that when it's off, it's like pretty dull sounding, and then Clarity is able to sort of lift the blanket off of it in this really transparent way. And what's cool is you can see what's happening here. We call this the difference meter. So remember, with so many bands in here, you can see how this is kind of ducking those resonances and harshness while actually keeping the stuff in between the resonances lifted. And that's how it's really able to achieve that clarity effect, I think. It's brightening it, but then when harsh things happen, it's ducking those down. And that has that effect of brightness, but without harshness. And we're really excited about this one. I've found that I've just started using this in all my productions now. I kind of just use this on everything.
I mean, I like just looking at it. It looks great.
Yeah, it's kind of beautiful.
Did you say how many bands it was looking at across the spectrum?
Yeah, it's 256.
That's high resolution, my friend. Well done.
Exactly. Yeah, high resolution. And this is definitely in the same sort of vein as our stabilizer that we introduced in Ozone 10. But the difference here is kind of that resolution, right? So stabilizer provides this very broad tonal balancing. And you can kind of just see how different these types of processing are. Additionally, stabilizer is targeting sort of a tonal balance curve based on these genres, while clarity is targeting flat noise. So maybe let's take a quick run through the controls of clarity. So we've got a main amount control. So you can go from doing a super subtle movement here at low amounts to totally just making it crazy. And I remember, Joshua, on our stream last year, we had a conversation about letting people push the parameter too far. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just that's a general practice I have, and I tend to tell people about. And of course, everybody has their own thing, but I always go past and then bring it back, and I find that more like I just get a better picture of things and figure out how much less I want of a really gnarly signal. Well, that's not going to be gnarly, but yeah, we have had that. I don't doubt it. That conversation for sure.
So that's the idea here. This at 100%, I think for anything beyond maybe sound design purposes, this is going to be too much. We designed this so that 50 is like a pretty good amount, and you'll definitely hear it. And then you've got sort of 25 and below for very subtle things. So that's this amount control here. The tilt control can be a little easier to see when we're at high amounts. So this is shaping the target. So as I bring this down, see how this kind of flattened out? You can imagine that there's a tilt happening here, where this is a very bright tilt, and this is a darker tilt. And so that can help you to basically achieve this clarifying effect of taming resonances and boosting the content in between resonances while staying sort of balanced tonally the same if you want. But we opt for this pink noise target, which is definitely a little bright because it
of course,
adds this super nice brightness. which is kind of indicative of professional quality, like shine.
The
harshness.
tilt like position in the middle of essentially the tilt is going to have a center. Is that centered on the low cut there, or is it centered across the entire across the entire spectrum, or is it centered in between the low and the high cuts?
Like, what's the fulcrum point of the tilt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1K.
Okay.
1K. And that was kind of arbitrary. It actually didn't really matter where we put that. Tested some different ones and was like, it sounds the same.
Gotcha.
And then standard for sort of compression, you've got attack and release controls. With Spectral processors, it's like each one of these tiny little bands in here is sort of acting like its own compressor. And so you can let a little bit more of the punch of the signal through with longer attack times, or, have this, see how it's moving just a little more slowly now. It's taking longer to return. So you can dial in ballistics or leave it at 100 milliseconds. And then we've got these exclusion areas. We call these action region handles. So you can focus the action region to exactly where in the frequency spectrum you want. And then maybe you're doing some tilt to control how that is working.
Nice. And I think it might be good if we maybe go through the process of pushing it way too far while the music is on so we can hear it, and then bringing it back. And
Cool.
Also, I know that there's a couple of other new features that are, I believe, across most, if not all of the modules, which are the delta. So we can talk a little bit about that and let people hear that. This might be a good module to really focus in on what's changing. And also, is the transient sustain split available in this module as well?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yep. So we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Oh, that's
there,
my mistake.
But
Everybody, I'm like, it's too excited.
No worries. We've added a bunch, and I forgot about delta buttons in that list I did at the beginning. The delta buttons are cool. Okay, yeah. So let's listen to it being pushed a little bit far. You can see how, as this is working, we're doing, 5 or 6 dB of high boost on, a master, which is generally going to be too much. Another improvement we've done across a lot of modules are adding these grids so you can see sort of on the amplitude axis exactly how much you're boosting or cutting, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to unmute again, and then I'm going to tilt this so it's more like flat, and that'll be a more subtle effect.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
First of all, hey, chat, let me know if you can hear the music okay. I want a healthy balance between Bill and I and the music, but the music is arguably more important than Bill and I. So if you want us to turn it up, do let us know. And Bill, we got a question from Mark Johnstone, is wondering if you can have more than one clarity. I'm assuming you can because it's a standalone. But can you add more than one inside, like the mother? It used to be called the mothership. I'm not sure what it's called anymore. Like the main.
Yeah, we still call it the mothership.
Nice.
No, so you can only have one instance of clarity in the mothership, and EQ is the reason is one where we have two. That's a pretty common thing that we get. Like, why not just let people add infinite instances of modules within the mothership? And there's a good reason for it, which would not be intuitive unless you're a developer.
Gotcha.
When a plugin instantiates, it has to tell the DAW all of its automatable parameters. It has to tell the DAW like every parameter, and that helps you automate, but it also helps you save and recall your sessions. So if it was like Ozone can just add multiple of these instances, like that just doesn't jive with how DAWs work, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, okay, we checked out clarity, but of course, most people are rocking multiple plugins within their chains. So, this shows up as a component plugin, so you can add clarity outside of the mothership and stack as many as you want.
Wait, Bill, I'm having a little bit of a moment here. Can you have clarity as an individual VST?
Yeah. All of the Ozone components are available as individual VSTs as part of the advanced bundle.
Was it last year that wasn't a thing? I'm trying to remember. I thought that was like removed and maybe it's back. I'm not really sure.
No, that's always been there for Ozone.
Okay. Nice.
Maybe you might be thinking of Nectar, because Nectar 4 just added component plugins as part of their advanced bundle. Yeah.
Nice.
So
by the way,
part of
thanks to everybody for joining. Sorry to cut you off there, Bill. Thanks for everybody for joining. We're joined by Bill Podolak from iZotope. We're taking a deep dive into everything that's new and improved in Ozone 11. It just came out yesterday. Links are everywhere if you want to click on them to check it out. And we're going to be giving away 3 each version of Ozone 11 to one lucky person for each version. So to be entered to win that, just be active in the chat. Hit the like button for Bill. Hit the like button for iZotope. Hit the like button for Ozone 11. The whole team over there. This is an incredible, incredible product. And Bill, what's up next? I'm excited about this. I'm so excited about this.
Okay, cool. So next, let's check out stem focus. This is a new capability that we've added to the advanced mothership, where rather than, the normal way Ozone works, where you add these modules and it applies obviously to the full mix that's coming in, this new stem focus mode will make it so that any Ozone module that you apply in this chain will only affect the vocals, drums, or bass within a mixed file. Right? So for mastering engineers who are working with mixed files and trying to make sort of targeted enhancements to one of those areas, now it's just super, super easy, right? So what I'm going to show here is smoothing out sort of a nasal sounding vocal. I've already made this EQ curve, but we have this nice scaling option. So maybe I'll just leave it at 0 and bypass this off and on. We're looking at a newly improved equalizer here. We made this look just a little bit prettier, but there's no shenanigans happening. Like, this is really a full, it's not like I am tricking you and actually doing a vocal stem. We're just going to be EQing a vocal within a mix. All right, so let's take a listen to that. Off first, and then I'll turn it on.
Quick to forget all the things you do, and I don't want to sit around and play you. But the light in the lobby, beside the party, soft on your body, let's not be tardy now. And I think your mom might like me too. Oh.
That's
so
wild.
Hopefully you could hear that.
Oh yeah.
The vocals, yeah, they're much richer because it's got this low mid boost. We're sort of taking out some nasally like upper mids and then giving it a little bit of a air presence boost.
So I think Bill, that EQing the vocal that way really, I mean, that makes sense. What you've done in the EQ curve makes sense to correct and make a vocal better. But let's play it again and have people really listen to maybe not the vocal but the rest of the track and hear how it's not being affected. Like that's the part that's like mind blowing here. You know, that's cool.
The crazy part. Yeah. Right. And we're seeing the spectrum of just the vocal too. So maybe we'll run through it once and then I'll switch this to like full mix. Nice. So you can hear how this EQ curve would affect the full mix. But yeah, what we're listening to here is just the vocal changing while all the rest of the music stays the same.
Wild.
Quick to forget all the things you do. And I don't want to sit around and playing you. But the light in the lobby, beside the party, soft on your body, let's not be tardy now. And I think your mom might like me too.
Okay, so now let's switch it to the full mix. So this is now just a normal EQ applying to the full mix, and you'll hear it's gonna sound horrible because we're boosting a full mix at 5 dB.
Quick to forget all the things you do, and I don't want to sit around and playing you. But the light in the lobby, beside the party, soft on your body, let's not be tardy now. And I think your mom might like me too.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Absolutely. And it's magic. It's beyond, well, again, it's science. Well done.
Yeah. So that's like true machine learning integration. So you train an AI to be able to detect what is vocals within the incoming stream so that it can basically separate out the vocals, let you do a chain of processing on just that, and then combine it back with the rest of the music. Like that's the magic that's happening here.
What's latency like?
It's like 2,000 samples, something like that, which is like 20 milliseconds.
Not bad at all.
Pretty fast. Yeah. So there are like other solutions out there that do things like this, but nothing that's real time in a DAW. Like normally you have to do something like RX where you render out offline render to separate the stem and then bring it back in. But this is just super convenient because it's real time. Check out how the metering changes. So like this is an opportunity. We did some work on this spectrum analyzer here to let you see all the way down to like 1 hertz, which is nice, and let you see extension up here. And this has also been tilted. But check out how when I switch to vocal, now that's just what a vocal looks like. And that's the drums. And that's the bass.
That's so cool.
Right, so you can see exactly what you're working on here. And a lot of people will say, well, you got to just do mix revisions, right? Like you got to send it back to the mix engineer and say fix it. But the reality of the world we live in is that a lot of the mastering engineers are on a deadline. They're the last link in the chain and needing to quickly turn something around for a client, and there's just no time for mix revisions. And then, the less nice way of saying it is sometimes dealing with clients and mixing engineers and having to describe what you need them to change, hope that they change it correctly, wait for them to send it back to you is just a hassle when you can be like, this vocal doesn't sound right. I'm going to pop it into vocal focus mode and just fix this vocal.
Yeah, no one's got time for
so
that.
That's the between us, client maybe doesn't need to know. Just be like, wow, how did you do that? Sounds so good. And that's the new little magic tool in your toolkit.
Love it. I think I might be jumping the gun here, but I know that the mastering assistant also will identify and help you with the vocal, right? Is that using the same technology, or is that a whole separate?
It is. Yeah, it actually is using the same technology. So we introduced, I'm not going to open it right now, master rebalance in Ozone 9. And that lets you change the gain of vocals, drums, or bass. And so sort of the spark of inspiration that the team had in this release was, well, why just gain, right? Why not let you manipulate those stems with any of the tools in the Ozone toolkit, right? And so actually master rebalance is grayed out right now because you can't do a master rebalance on top of a stem focus because they're doing the same thing.
Gotcha.
So let's check out one more of the tools in the toolkit, which is Spectral Shaper, which we've redesigned for this release. This is another one of the spectral modules in the Ozone toolkit that is for taming harshness, and it's basically a de-esser. So there were some harsh sounds in harsh S's in this vocal, and now with this new design, it's kind of a more simple, you just turn it up, and then you start seeing some S gain reduction there. And let's take a listen to this, taming these S's.
Quick to forget all the things you do, and I don't wanna sit around and play you. But the light in the lobby, beside the party, soft on your body, let's not be tardy now. And I think your mom might like me too. Oh.
So this is something we heard from a lot of mastering engineers, is like very frequently you need to de-ess a vocal within a master, but hitting it with a de-esser will a lot of the time take the life out of the snare or the hi-hats, right? You're digging into those elements occupying a similar frequency range, but now this just totally solves that problem, right? You can do it with de-essing with Spectral Shaper, or maybe multiband dynamics, or maybe a dynamic EQ. You've got all of these options.
And because you have
this one's
vocals selected up there at the top, everything you add inside of the mothership just applies to that vocal.
Exactly. Yeah, so for anyone who dives into this, the recommended workflow is to have a vocal-focused Ozone mothership in your chain, if you so choose. And then separately, if you need to work on all of these stems, you would have another mothership that's drum-focused, another one that's bass-focused, and then a final one that is full mixed focus to do the normal Ozone thing.
Wild. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, crazy. It's like we don't have time to show all of the permutations of like what you can do with this, because it's 17 modules times 3 different stems, right? It's just all of these possibilities of how to do this targeted enhancement on masters.
Bill, before we move on, we got a couple of questions here. Perhaps we can get out of the way just so we can let the community know what they want to know.
Cool.
Betty is wondering, where does this go in the effects chain?
Yeah, so I would recommend putting this on your master bus. And stem focus, is definitely intended for mastering engineers who might be working with a mixed file. So in that case, you probably just have one track in your DAW and it's going to the, master bus. And that would be the recommended way to place it. And you would want to have a stem-focused Ozone upstream of a full mixed-focused Ozone, where you're going to be doing your limiting and maybe dithering, and those should all be the last things in the chain.
Copy that. And the inevitable CPU question, Bill. How are we looking with the CPU usage in the latest version of Ozone?
Yeah, it's really not that bad. There are certain modules that are CPU heavy. So like saying Ozone is CPU heavy as a blanket statement is not correct, because things like the Equalizer are totally fast. Spectral Shaper, a bit more CPU heavy. Something interesting to know is when you do like mid-side, that's now running 2 instances of Spectral Shaper. And this is actually the most CPU heavy thing that you can do in Ozone, is a mid-side Spectral Shaper. But running through the list, it's like clarity is light, dynamic EQ is light, dynamics is light. It's interesting to note, similarly to mid-side, as you start stacking up multiband, each time you add a band is adding CPU. Some of the other heavy ones, low-end focus is pretty heavy. It also needs a lot of latency because having frequency resolution in the low end requires a lot of time. That's like one of those nerdy technical things. And then maximizer is like, as you get into these different modes, 1 and 2 are very light, 3 is heavy, 4 classic and modern are pretty light, but 4 transient is heavy. Transient emphasis adds a good amount of CPU. True peak adds a good amount of CPU. But stem focus is the same cost as a master rebalance, which is medium, I would say.
All right, and this is actually, this next question is a really good one. It's from Richie, and they're saying they're not an Ozone user, but they're wondering what the learning curve is like.
Yeah, I think the learning curve is pretty simple. The way that we've designed this is like there's layers of the onion to peel back, and you can sort of approach Ozone as a beginner, I think, and get really fast results. The fastest way is the Master Assistant, which we'll get into at the end. But the big pieces are like Equalizer, and this works basically the same as any equalizer you've used. Maximizer, we've redesigned this, and we've tried to make things as simple as possible. We have sort of a consistent paradigm across the modules where there's a big knob on the left, and you turn it up to make the effect start happening, right? So Maximizer has that, Stabilizer and Spectral Shaper that we were just showing. So I think for a beginner, this is pretty important, right? The big knob, turn it up on the left, and the effect starts happening. So I think it's pretty approachable for beginners, but then has, like I said, these layers of the onion that you can peel off to add complexity and precision that make it really appealing to professionals as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, yeah, it might seem daunting, but get in and just start with maybe the Master Assistant, which is going to point you in the right direction, maybe some presets. And then from there, once you have an idea of, I need to tweak this frequency range on this part of the track, like you'll start to get down into those onion layers, as you call them, as you detect things that you'll want to do. But the mastering assistant's going to get you, halfway there right out of the gate, I'd say.
Totally.
Yeah. One last question before we move on, and that is, I guess I'll kind of tweak out the question from Nick Helfrich, and that is, when mastering in general, and maybe mastering with Ozone 11 specifically, do you ever automate or use different parameters for different parts of the song? I think it's more of a mastering in general question.
Yeah, automation across different parts of the song. Totally. Why not?
Are Ozone 11 parameters automatable in the DAW?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, of course.
Nice.
Everything. I think if you Ozone, I would be surprised if there's any plugin on the market with a longer list of automatable parameters. Because remember what I was saying about adding multiple instances of something? This is why you can't.
Yeah, because you'd have all of that plus one. So it'd be
right,
doubled
and
up,
you can't just dynamically add new automatable parameters. But yeah, all of this is totally open for automation.
Fantastic. All right, well, everybody that's joining us late, thanks for coming. This will be archived here on the channel if you want to go back and watch what we've already covered, but welcome. We're here with Bill Podolak from iZotope. We're checking out the brand new Ozone 11 mastering suite that just came out yesterday. Links are everywhere if you want to check it out on pluginboutique.com. And we're going to be giving away some copies of it. So to be entered to win, just got to be active in the chat. Let us know what you think. Ask your questions, and we'll try to get them answered here on the stream with the expert. What's up next, Bill?
Okay, so next up is Transient Sustain. This is another one of those layers, right? Where as you get more comfortable, you're thinking about applying things in a more precise way. It follows the same paradigm in Ozone as mid-side. So this is processing where you can choose to separately affect the middle of the stereo image versus the sides. But Transient Sustain works on focusing processing on the transients, which is like the drums, sort of the punchy parts of the signal. If you were looking at a waveform, it would look like a spike. And then the sustain is everything else. And we are looking at that right now in the Equalizer. But we've actually added this to 10 Ozone modules. So we'll look at 4 of them. But let's start with the Equalizer, which is sort of the basic place to start. So the move that we're making here is a smiley face curve on just the transients. So we're sort of adding some oomph to the kick drum while also adding some sparkle to sort of the high-end percussion elements. While on the sustain channel, which you view separately by just toggling between these two things, we're taming sort of a boomy, sustained bass while adding some high-mid presence to horn elements that we're going to listen to. So let's do another gain match bypass before and after. So that's like the combination of a lot of things, right? I kind of threw 4 things at you real quick, and maybe if that was too much, we can go back and listen. But I think it's also kind of, it's cool, right? Like we're able to really easily achieve 4 different things that would be fairly complex otherwise.
It's also a testament, and I just want to, we've already briefly touched on this, but it's a testament to what we're doing here, that you're doing all of this with the gain match bypass. Because there might be some people who are trying to pull it, pull one over on everybody and just letting it get real loud, and you're like, oh wow. But this is, I mean, it's phenomenal how big of a difference is, or that you can hear even while we're live streaming from the US to UK. Like I can just hear it so clearly and hear the improvement of it with the gain level, gain match bypass. So that's just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, that's kind of just the intellectual honesty thing here. We're not going to try and trick you with louder's better.
Yeah, Bill. While we're the people in the chat here are smashing the like button. I hate saying that, but you need to smash the like button to help us out. Can you maybe give us the delta bypass on this, just so we can really hear what's going on?
Totally. Yeah. So let's do delta, but I'm going to power off sustain. So like, let's just listen to the transient delta. So we're listening to boosted kick drum and sort of high-end percussion. Oops, I hit that. So this is what's being added on the transient side. And another thing we can do is we can solo the transient and the sustain, which is kind of interesting to hear just like what is being detected as transient.
Wild.
Yeah, wild. And then sustain soloed is going to sound like transients get sucked out every time the drums hit.
That's a disco edit in the making.
So inside Scoop, this is like evolution of the transient shaper that we have in Neutron, right? So transient shapers are doing the same thing, but it's just changing the gain of transients, right? So this is like separate the transients, process them, merge it back together, process the sustain. And then, yeah, maybe we'll move on in the interest of time.
Yep.
Check out Low End Focus, which has also been the UI is totally different. If you've ever seen low end focus before, we've added this metering that you've now seen in stabilizer, clarity, and spectral shaper. We call it the difference meter. And it's good for showing spectral processing. That's what low end focus is too. So what I've done here is low end focus has these two modes, punchy and smooth. And before you could only ever use one or the other, but now you can take the punchy mode and apply that to transients while using the smooth mode on sustain. So let's take a before and after on that. That's pretty subtle. I think it's meant to have the equalizer on before. But yeah, so that's a neat application and just a new looking module for any lovers of low end focus. You couldn't really see what it was doing before. You could definitely hear it, but now you can see it as well as hearing it, which is pretty useful, even though of course we're using our ears. The imager, this we should be able to just focus on. So imager got a fresh coat of paint as well, and transient sustain mode. So this is really cool because you can sort of take two approaches here. Either you can make the transients sort of pulse outward with every hit, or if you want to keep the transients basically how they are, you can widen just the sustain and it'll do the opposite. So rather than pulsing out with every hit, it'll like pulse out in between the hits.
Which parameters are... Okay, so you've just switched back and forth between transient and sustain. So the multi-band crossover positions are going to be for both, and then you'll have individual width parameters for each?
Exactly, yeah.
Gotcha.
And stereoize and recover sides is also going to be for each. So let's do we're listening to widened transients right now. So you're going to hear sort of an opening effect every time the drums hit. I'll start with it off. That one's a little subtle. So these subtle moves is a good time to talk about delta buttons, because this is exactly why these buttons are so useful. They let you hear exactly what you're changing in the signal. So now that I've switched delta on, you're going to need to be in headphones. If you're listening in mono, this will be silence. But listen to what's being added to the signal. So every time those drums and the shakers are all kind of doing this musical movement, it's also widening the image, which is a pretty neat trick to pull. And then we've also added this to our multiband exciter. So now it's like not only can you do frequency specific saturation, you can also do mid-side of that and transient sustain. So this is cool for sort of gridding up the drums. Or one of the things I really like is saturating just the sustain, and this lets the drums kind of punch through cleanly. So let's take a listen to sustained saturation. Subtle move, right? Again, a good time to check out what's happening with the delta. This is what's being added to the signal. This would be less subtle if we weren't gain matching. So it's kind of filling in between the drum hits.
We've got a couple of questions coming in the chat about special upgrade offers for 2 earlier versions of Ozone to Ozone 11. The answer to that is yes. If you just want to go over to pluginboutique.com, and just search Ozone 11. My friend Killian will also put links in the chat, but there are upgrade offers available right now. Sorry, Bill.
No, perfect. Yeah,
Bill,
loyalty discounts.
Everything. Yeah, it's all there on Plugin Boutique. We got a pretty interesting question here from Demolo. Was there a catchphrase within the development team when developing Ozone 11? Was there a secret? There
Yeah.
was.
There was.
Are you privy to share, or is that still top secret?
No, I can share that. What a fun question.
Yeah.
So the context first is that CAKE team, it stands for Creative and Kind Engineers. You're going to talk to the Pi team next week who built Nectar. That's Pioneer, Innovate, and Expand. So anyways, our catchphrase is piece of cake.
Okay. So you actually cut out there. It was Cake team?
Yeah, cake team. Like,
all right. Piece of cake.
Like, chocolate cake.
Nice.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, nice.
Building Ozone 11 was a piece of cake. No, it was actually very challenging, but it was fun too.
Bill, just before moving on to the next feature here we want to have in focus, off the top, do you know which, I think you said 10 modules have the Transient Sustain capability. Do you know off the top which ones they are?
Totally. It is all of the equalizers, so dynamic EQ, equalizer 1 and 2, match EQ, and vintage EQ. And then all of the spectral modules, so stabilizer, spectral shaper, low-end focus, and the new clarity module. And then also the exciter and the imager. And so really that's like all the places that are relevant.
Right.
Because you wouldn't do that with a limiter, which is maximizer. You wouldn't really do that with a compressor or a tape machine or a limiter or master rebalance. So we added it into all the modules that it was relevant for.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but there's a lot there. What we heard during beta testing was people are like, whoa, I've been using these tools forever, but now they feel like new tools with this new capability, and it's like this creative dimension with which now I can explore sort of audio processing. So we're really excited about Transient Sustain.
Yeah, that's real cool. Love it.
Heck yeah. Okay, so let's move on if that's cool.
Yeah, we've got all kinds of cake-related phrases being put in the chat, just to let you know.
Okay, I'll watch those back and maybe we'll pick some up. I think the team might be watching too. So
shout out to the iZotope Ozone Cake team if you're watching. Welcome.
Shout out.
Nice.
So we also built an new UI for the maximizer here. Maximizer is kind of the crown jewel of Ozone. I remember talking about this on the last stream, but like one of the most fun parts of my job is going to the top tier professional mastering studios to talk to them about Ozone, and they're all like, I love Maximizer. And it's shaping the sound of hits. It's like the limiter that a lot of those top tier men and women are using. So we wanted to do it justice with a fresh, modern, more intuitive UI, better metering, and also some new DSP. So let's check that out. Here is, I've muted it. We shouldn't be hearing anything.
We don't. Yeah.
Just so I can talk over it a little bit. We're seeing a much bigger meter with a rectified waveform, so you can get more detail into seeing exactly what you're doing. We're seeing the gain reduction happening when the signal exceeds the threshold. And you kind of just intuitively turn it up with this gain control, it was already gain staged correctly, but most people's masters would start something like this, and then you would be saying, how much gain am I going to apply until I start crushing the life out of my master? So metering improvement, sort of a more streamlined control set. You've got all your IRC modes here. True peak, that's sort of a nice capability of Ozone maximizer. And then sort of some secondary controls down here. And the new upward compress that I'm really excited to talk about. So taking a step back, compression, as most people normally think of it, is downward compression. Downward compression is when the signal gets loud, you turn it down. But there's another less common type of compression called upward compression, and that is when the signal gets quiet, you turn it up. And so that's exactly what this is doing, where if you're trying to get a louder, more present master, rather than just having to push the signal up into the limiter and sort of have the trade-off of distortion, you can use this new upward compression to sort of lift quiet sections. And that's important because what we found is a kind of a hallmark of amateur mixes is too much macro dynamics, right? By macro dynamics, we mean the balance between like verses and choruses and intros. So like an amateur mix might have a intro where it's like, that's really quiet, and then a verse one where it's like, I need to turn it up to even hear this. But then crescendo into a final chorus that is so loud that the listener's turning the volume down. And that's not good, right? Professional mixes are pretty consistently up front throughout. And that's achieved with compression. This new upward compression is able to do it really easily and transparently. You can see the simple control here is just how many dB of upward compression do we want to do. So let's listen to it. I'm going to kind of exaggerate it, and then I'm going to just, actually I'll do the bypass it off and on, and you'll hear the difference that sort of makes in filling in the gaps between these transients. So you hear how like on that uno dos tres cuatro, if I turn it off, that part's pretty quiet. And then you get hit with the kick drum. But if you turn this on, we're going to lift that quiet part. And then immediately when that kick drum comes in, this upward compression is able to duck down out of the way, which is really cool. And then, you know, as you can see, kick drum hits and then it starts filling in. Snare drum hits and it starts filling in.
So would you say it's best to find a balance between normal compression and upward compression, or would you just go one or the other?
Yeah, it's a balance. So you want to be, and you strike that balance right here in Maximizer, right? Because limiting is a form of downward compression, right? So let me run this while muted. This has an interesting property where people throw around the term gain staging a lot. This is actually gain staging. So if you are like smashing your master here, you're now doing all downward compression, and the upward compression is barely sneaking in. Where if this is so quiet that you're not doing any downward compression, it's upward compressing all the time, right? And you don't want that either. What you want is to use this input gain to do a balance of downward compression and upward compression. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, is there sort of a cheat sheet people should be looking for? Is it, I mean, the gain reduction there, is the gain reduction is strictly for the limiter, the compression on the limiter, or is it also telling you how much it's pushing up on the upward compression? Like, what should people be looking for specifically, or is it just use your ears for this?
It's use your ears, but that's not always helpful. So I'll give my recommendation. I think every mastering engineer might have a different recommendation.
Sure.
You it's not great to be like, oh, I'm aiming for a target loudness, right? But you could. Most like pop masters are in the -8 to -9 LUFS kind of world. Ozone has short-term loudness, so we could be looking at loudness, and so you could be like, okay, do I want to crush the life out of this? We're looking at this now. We're at -5. Like, no, that's too much. So you want to be pushing the gain until you're in like, and this depends on genre too. So like we're mixing a pop thing right now. -8, -9 is going to be like loud and pretty typical. And then you can be like, okay, how, like if we had multiple sections of this song, I would be like, okay, then I'm going to go to my intro and see like, is this intro not present enough? And think about how much I want to boost like my verse or my intro. So you kind of push gain to desired loudness and then add in a couple dB of upward compression as a sweetener, depending on how macrodynamic your master is. Another interesting way of doing it is with the delta button. So delta is super useful on limiters. When I turn delta on and I turned upward compression down for now, you'll see why later, we're going to hear these little bzz, bzz of the transients being shaved off. So you could be thinking about, okay, how much transient am I willing to lose here? So let's listen to that. Right, so that's
all
limiting off.
That's all gonna translate to lost signal in the final mixdown.
That's like what we're hearing right now is the signal being removed by the limiter.
Yeah.
Right. So if we start crushing this, like you're gonna notice that that's probably gonna sound too crushed. But this delta button is like also super useful for dialing in all of these other things. Because it helps you hear the differences between these IRC modes a little better. Like listen to the difference between 4 modern and then I'm going to switch it to 4 transient. It's like a timbrel difference. Transient is kind of keeping the distortion up high, and that helps the transients continue to come through, right? The loss we're hearing is not a whole lot of low end. And it can also be useful for these characters. So 0 character, the character is like the speed of the limiter. So at 0 character, it's going to be more distorted. Let's listen to that. Let's do one of the normal modes. Compare to but the trade-off becomes pumping, right? So you can see on a transient like that extra time that it's taking right there to return to 0, that is pumping. So this is the trade-off you're navigating with character here.
Can you let us hear the delta of the upward compression now?
Yes, good call. So so we're going to hear both. We're going to continue to hear these blips.
In the delta of the upward compression is what it's actually adding, right? As opposed to what it's going to be taking away.
Yep. So delta can be like, you got to wrap your head around it, especially in cases when you're both reducing and adding.
Yeah. It's delta's the
soft
difference,
clip,
right?
delta's the difference, right?
Right.
So we could add some soft clip here as well, and then we'll hear the saturation that soft clip is bringing in. Let's turn off upward compress and just listen to limiter plus soft clip. Hear how much different those transients sound being soft clip compared to limited.
I mean,
yeah, this is some deep stuff. We're like deep into the layers of the onion now, you know?
yeah, we're deep in there. I like it. It's nice.
Okay, so that's Maximizer. And last but not least, we've got our Master Assistant, which has seen a solid round of improvements for Ozone 11. The first thing you'll notice is a different look for this Master Assistant screen, where we've kind of brought tonal balance and loudness as sort of the fundamental tools front and center. Last year, I showed how we have so backing up for a second, we have this system of sort of a Master Assistant tab and a regular tab. So you'll hit this button, and I've already analyzed this master, and this is just what Master Assistant gave me. And with Master Assistant, it's basically a very advanced system for targeting a certain sound and helping your master to get towards that sound. So in this case, we're targeting the sound of pop, which is one of the stock genres where we analyzed tons and tons of really great pop songs and sort of extracted these targets from that music. And those targets are like tonal balance targets, loudness targets, vocal balance, which is new, and then also dynamics and width, and then we're sweetening it with the clarity and stabilizer. So what you can do is sort of flip between these. Here, let me mute this. You can like flip between these different targets to sort of audition different sounds for your master. Like, what if this sounded like hip hop? What if this sounded like pop? But you can also browse sort of a library of custom targets and add them via reference files. Be like, what would this sound like if it sounded like Dancing Queen? And now Ozone will match your master to sound like Dancing Queen, which is, as we can see from this tonal balance tunnel, is like very bass light and low mid heavy, especially compared to like modern pop, which is a more balanced, sort of flat with extended low bass. Let's talk about so the improvements here. The UI that we're looking at, dialing in all of these targets and the way Ozone sort of responds to them has been improved. We've added clarity to the Master Assistant chain, and we've also added upward compress. So we're taking that new DSP and just using it to sweeten your master. And then the really exciting thing is the new vocal balance capability that Master Assistant has. So in our research, we found that another one of those hallmarks of sort of a beginner mix is when the vocal is just not balanced correctly, right? It's either too loud, too upfront, but more often than not, it's too quiet, right? So that human element that most listeners will be focusing on is just not there, you know, in terms of the balance. So building on that technology from STEM Focus that I was showing earlier, when Ozone analyzes your master, it will pull apart the vocal and the rest of the music, measure both of their loudnesses, and then understand that ratio, that balance. And if your vocal is properly balanced, you'll see a check mark show up in this upper right corner, and it'll say, good job, you balanced your vocal correctly. But in this case, the vocal is too quiet, and so it's suggesting a boost here. And it's using the master rebalance module to do that. So it's boosting this vocal by about a dB. And that could be an indication, if you have sort of a mix to work with, to go back to your vocal, consider making it louder. But we hope that that's going to be helpful for people who might be stuck in that loop of, bouncing out my master final vocal plus 1 dB. People are stressing over that little balance there. Master Assistant will give you some confidence with a check mark or suggest a rebalance here.
We got a question from Matthias Bowden, and it's a good question. It's, what's the relationship between the main sliders on the Master Assistant page and the actual modules inside of, the not Mastering Assistant page?
That's a really great question. Thank you. So they're all basically scaling the module that they're linked to. So in the case of the Equalizer, we have this scaling thing right here that'll take the curve that's applied and either double it or send it to 0 or anything in between. And so if we land this at 50, now you'll see that this is at 50. So this slider and this slider are the same. And hopefully it gives you some indication with this cool little animation here. And then all of these are linked to the impact amount and imager amount. Let me show that real quick. So a lot of these modules have like an amount in the upper right corner. So check out, as I move this amount, these sliders over here. So we have these new scaled amount sliders that give you kind of an indication that you're at a non-100% amount.
And those are like,
you can see,
it's moving all the parameters relative to whatever the relationship was to begin with.
Right.
Right.
So if these were boosting, we would be scaling those up while the others get scaled down. Right.
Yeah.
Imager has the same thing. So you might open Imager and be like, what is going on here? It's like, yeah, it's scaled at 50%. We just want to give people sort of the range to be able to do these things and listen to the effect that it might be having on the audio and dial things in that way. And then clarity and stabilizer, that amount is linked to the big knob here. It's a great question. So the Master Assistant page is kind of your high-level 10,000-foot view of dialing in your processing and doing it by ear.
And I think I always like to point out with these is this, and just general presets, if you were, is that's just a starting recommendation of where to begin, what might be the process further down the line. It's not meant to be the end all be all. You can easily get in, you can just switch tabs there and you've got literally every parameter you could ever want at your disposal. It's just saying, hey, we've listened, compared to that to the, tens of thousands of other tracks we've analyzed. This is probably what you want to do. And of course you can get in and make your own decisions afterwards.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think the analogy of saying this is your assistant is really intentional. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this is not meant to be your AI mastering engineer. You're not sending this to someone or somewhere where you have no control over it. This is supposed to be assisting you, helping you get to a professional, polished result faster. But yeah, it's an assistant.
Yeah, love that. James Washington is wondering if this is part of the music production suite. And James, good news, yes it is. And so is Nectar 4, which again, next Thursday, right here on the Plug and Boutique YouTube channel, we're going to be going into yet another deep dive with Dan. Is it Dan Gonzalez, if I remember?
Uh-huh.
Yep, nice.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so come back for that if you want to check it out. And both of these incredible products are part of that music production suite, which is available on Plugin Boutique if you want to check it out. Really big bundle of really great products.
Okay, so let's listen to the results of Master Assistant now. It's set up a lot of processing for us, right? So you're not going to be able to hear each individual thing. You're just going to be listening to the sum of all of the parts. We're boosting the vocal by a dB, doing this kind of EQ curve with some air. This impact processing was new in Ozone 10, but it's sort of a multiband compressor and expander. So we're compressing the lows, low mids, and upper mids by like varying amounts while doing some expansion on the highs. Imager boosting the width quite a bit while actually narrowing sort of some super wide sub bass. Clarity doing its thing. Stabilizer doing its thing. Or are we on EDM? No. It's interesting. And dynamic EQ. Maybe I'll pause for a second. This is finding sort of resonances that are hitting the maximizer excessively and turning those down. And then maximizer doing gain reduction and some upward compression. Okay, let me just think. Yeah, we'll just run it. All right, so we're doing a gain matched before and after. I'll start with it off. So the things I'm hearing are definitely the brightness, but also the width. I'm hearing sort of it's like a good little bit of grit coming on those transients. You know, you don't want just loose transients kind of flying. You want it to be a nice, consistent hit every time. And overall, it's like amateur versus basically professional. Is the difference I'm hearing. So hopefully that came through the stream. Also, the vocal presence is definitely helping.
Yeah, I mean, I could hear it's night and day, and again, it's gain match, so it's really impressive. We have a question about the targets in the mastering assistant, and it's Balanced Springs wondering if you can create your own custom targets.
Totally, yeah. So we have this custom tab. There are two ways to create targets. One is with this plus button. This will just open up a file thing. So if you have the file, you can just import that and it'll create a target from your reference file. But here's the really exciting thing. We created this new product called Audiolens. And this is an even easier way of creating targets. So Audiolens will listen to the output of your computer. You can see this is not like a plugin. This is an application that I opened up separately. And so what I could do is take my Spotify. I won't play anything.
Okay.
You won't hear it. Is this okay? I could stop.
No. I don't mind. It's just copyrighted music will get us into trouble.
You won't hear it, right?
Yeah, if we don't hear it, then it should be fine. Yeah.
I'll play a tiny short snippet. Did you hear that?
No.
No, right? Yeah. So if we think the new Olivia Rodrigo song is a great reference for this, and we go to sort of a loud section. I know you can't hear it, but I can. I'm now capturing the sound of this Olivia Rodrigo song. And that was the end of the chorus. And now I've got, what's that song called? Bad Idea. And once I save this, think maybe I need to like pop off and back on, but this'll show up in Ozone. Maybe I need to play pause. Maybe open up a new instance. I thought it showed up right away. I was pretty sure it didn't. Or it did. Well, it's right down there. I didn't capitalize it. Apparently that matters. So
Capitals are important, Bill.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a next level thing that I think a lot of people maybe still haven't seen. But with this Audiolens application, you can create targets just effortlessly, right? Like stream your new favorite song from anywhere on your computer and match it with Ozone.
It's awesome.
And Neutron does that too, right? So you could have like a guitar sound that you really love or drum sound. And then what Dan will probably show you next week is Nectar can now do it too. And Nectar will isolate out the vocals in whatever you're listening to and then use the assistant to match to that vocal from like Spotify or whatever.
And that's so wild to me. I mean, it's just so cool. I can't wait for next Thursday. Do come back, everybody. It's going to be another wild ride with Nectar 4. My goodness. Was that everything, Bill, or is there other stuff you wanted to show us?
That's everything.
Brilliant. Man, well, thank you so much for doing that. I know you're a busy person. I know it literally just came out yesterday, so I'm sure there's a lot on your plate. And taking the time to sit down and show us this was, you didn't have to do it, but you did. So we appreciate you. Everybody say thanks to Bill in the chat. Say give us some likes. And not only that, but organizing and arranging the ability for me to give away a copy of not only Ozone Elements, Ozone Standard, but someone's going to win Ozone Advanced right now. That's pretty sweet. I'm going to go ahead, just giving you a round of applause. You can't hear it, but it's happening.
Thank you. Yeah, it's had super fun being here. Thank you for having me.
Let me just read through these questions, make sure we hit everything. Mr. Brown Alliance is wondering how many hours does it take to write a piece of software like this? Ballpark, if you want.
Oh my gosh. Well, so it like you can't just be like we just wrote Ozone because we were, it's been over 20 years of building Ozone, right? So Ozone 1 came out in 2001. We spent all of this year, roughly 5 days a week, 4 people, plus 2 engineers. So it's tough to quantify. Here's an interesting little fact. So we use tracking software called Jira, where you write tickets, and it's like, here's what you're going to go do. You take a ticket, and then you develop it. So the Ozone project, we got into the 13,000th ticket.
Wow. That's crazy.
Crazy.
Let me just keep checking here. What? Ty Base is wondering when or if there's a new trash upgrade coming.
I can't say.
Yeah, I know. People are always asking questions that can't be answered here on the stream. But listen, that's pretty much all the questions answered. Thanks for that. We are going to do the giveaway now. We've got 5 names of people who participated in the chat, asked good questions, were overall nice people. Bill, what's your favorite number between 1 and 5? And that's going to be the winner of the advanced copy.
And I just say it now?
Yeah, just the number between 1 and 5, your favorite.
4 popped into my head. Or 4 music.
4 advanced.
Not really a big fan of alternate time signatures, personally.
Sure. No, that's fine. And what about your second favorite between 1 and 5, excluding 4? For the standard
5.
version. 5, all right.
Yeah.
All right. And last but not least, 1 through 3.
1.
Nice. All right, and I got our winners. The winners are Ozone 11 Elements, courtesy of iZotope, is Deborah Strombres. Congratulations. The winner of the standard version of Ozone 11 is Mark Johnstone. Congratulations. And the winner of the advanced copy of the brand new, literally yesterday came out, Ozone 11 Advanced, is Rasta Business 341. Congratulations, everybody. Absolutely phenomenal. Bill, I know I said it, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you so much for coming by. Round 2 was absolutely fantastic. When it's round 3, just hit me up on the email and we'll make it happen again if you want. It's been very enlightening, incredible product. What you and your team have done is truly impressive, and I mean that. And I can't wait to see what you come up with next.
Thank you, Joshua. Fun being here.
All
and
right.
thank you to everyone watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. If you're coming in late, this will be archived here on the channel for eternity or until YouTube shuts down. So definitely go back and rewatch. And the winners, if your name was called, please email support@plugin-boutique with your email, what you want, and a screenshot of you logged into your YouTube account here on YouTube, and we will get you sorted with your prizes. And Bill, I'll let you get to it. And everybody else, I'm Joshua Casper for Plugin Boutique, and I'll see you in the next live stream next Thursday, 5 p.m. UK. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
To the top, ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call we international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal skinny. We are the general. We sit up on the rhythm and open the mic incredible. I'm be right palm rhythm and I move with the rhythm. I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow it. Jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it right. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we chop a mic, they call we give it a general. International, when me ride palm rhythm and I move with the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal skinny. keep on rising to the top. Ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. Hey, why? International, what they call we international. When me ride palm rhythm in the move, but the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm rhythm and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place, I with the one Jamal skinny.